Lehman, who's communicating for many years, who is probably best known in this group for his work with natives, Claypool, and Persimmon. He's going to give us an update on that.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if this thing works. Yes, it does. To give an update, we probably need to go back and review a little bit of what's happened in the past. And I'm referring or talking primarily about a little bit of feedback here. Talking about hybridization of the American persimmon and the khaki persimmon. Thank you. Luther Burbank, who is a very famous hybridizer of many species of plants that is well known, tried to hybridize the American and the Asian persimmon and the khaki persimmon. And in his book, he wrote, "I have raised vast numbers of seedlings of the Japanese persimmon and have attempted to produce new varieties by crossing this with the American persimmon. But as yet, I have not succeeded in effecting this hybridization, chiefly perhaps because the American species is such a shy bearer that I have had few good opportunities to cross-fertilize the two." But having been stationed and work out in California, where the American and the khaki persimmon both grow, I suspect that he had more pollen available than what he had, than what is admitted to. In 1991, I was part of the horticultural exchange agreement between the Vavilov Institute of Plant Industry in Russia and the North American fruit exporters. There were 6 of us. We were in Russia for 3 weeks. Many of you have heard this before. We saw the Soviet Union as very few Americans ever saw the Soviet Union. We were permitted into places that no American had been permitted into, and one of them, they said, we were the first Americans in 50 years that had been permitted in that area. One of the places that we visited was Yalta. And while we were there and talking, they mentioned the hybrid Roscianca. Let me backstep just a second. There were other people that tried hybridizing. I'm sure that Shanks in Maryland, I'm sure that Meader tried it also. J.C. McDaniels in Illinois, at the University of Illinois at Champaign, tried it a little bit, and nobody succeeded. When the Russians announced sometime during the Cold War that they had succeeded in hybridizing the two, they immediately said, "We would like scion. We want scion." And no scion wood was ever forthcoming, and this went on for several years. And finally, they were saying, "Yeah, that's just more communist propaganda. We haven't been able to do it." They really haven't been able to do it either. But when we got there, they told us about Roscianca, and there were watercolors. We actually didn't see the fruit, but there were watercolors, and a brief description of what I want to point out here is Roscianca 18. Let me go forward with this. This is a daughter of Roscianca. This is Nikitaskaya Bordovaya. It is also trade named by Jim Gilbert at the One Green World Nursery as Nikita's Gift. And it is a very good persimmon. It is larger than any American persimmon. Measured on a refractometer, I measured 24% sugar. It is late, but not as late as the Roscianca persimmon. And this is another picture of Nikitaskaya Bordovaya, Nikita's Gift. Last fall, I had the opportunity, the invitation to go to Ukraine and speak at the International Fruit Breeders Conference, which I mentioned last night and Sunday night. And Cliff England and I had exchanged plant material with a persimmon breeding station in Novokhovka, Ukraine. And so when we had the invitation, and the invitation was by this gentleman. No, it's not working. That's all right. The gentleman on the right-hand side, and his name was Vasily, and the the station farm, this is the office, and very little has improved in Ukraine since we were there 20 years ago. Russia, vast improvements. I saw all kinds of improvements. The roads are improved. A lot of vehicles are off the road. They're driving American vehicles. They're driving more Japanese vehicles. And there were no automobile dealerships at all when we were there in 1991. When we left Krasnodar, which is east of the Black Sea, which is a town, I don't remember now, it seems to me like 5 or 6 million people. On the outskirts was 6 automobile dealerships side by side, 4 Japanese and 2 American. And the things have really improved, but the Ukraine hasn't. Now they do have an improvement in automobiles, but they're a poorer country. They don't have the natural resources that Russia does. So the buildings have changed very little. When we got there, when we stayed as guests in the guest house, and again, because they had no money, and I believe that the station is owned by the government, and the director was paid by government, but all the employees and everything else, they have to derive their salary from income. So they don't have a lot of money. And the guest house that we stayed in had no heat. And while we were there, it was very cold. It was unusually cold. The temperature was probably outside, well, the inside was probably around 60 degrees. And we stayed there overnight, and their bedding is different from ours. We have nice beds, large beds, and with wraparound sheets and so on. They don't. The sheets and blankets are just as wide as the cot, and the cot that we had was about the same as an army cot. And so you're sleeping in this, and the temperature is about 60, 65 degrees inside, and so you're cuddled up in a ball, and every time you roll over, when you take the blankets with you, your butt's hanging out, getting cold. It was quite an experience, and I'm glad I went. I wanted Barbara to go with me, and after I got there, I was very glad she didn't go, because she would have been very, very miserable. When we got there that evening, it was just getting dark. We had our meal there that evening, and fellowship, getting to know each other, and you can see the bottles on the table, the vodka, the cognac, wine, and we had a very good visit. This was the constant on the left of the older gentleman, I don't remember his name, it was Constant Vasily, and this is Victor Yeroman from Krinsk, Russia, and he was my guest for the entire time. Victor is a director at the station there in Krinsk, and it's a breeding station, it's a nursery, a farm, it's a very large station, and likewise he is the director. He is paid by Moscow, by the government, and the employees, he had like 125, are all paid by money that they earn on the farm, on the station. The young lady seated there was my interpreter for the entire time, and she was the daughter of Vasily, the gentleman next to Victor. And she was very good. Her English was better than, Victor's English was better than she, but her technical knowledge, vocabulary was better than what Victor's was. And after eating the meal, and almost all of the meals in that area was just primarily sausages, fruit, vegetables, and cheese, and good vodka. In the station, in the office, they had a very large display case. They were doing many fruits and primarily fruits and fruit trees. And this was a large display of jujube here. More of the display. And most of these jujube came from China and were very large and quite good. And they're still, in 1991, we went into many stations and they were big on having fruit displays, but the fruit was wax. They were wax models of the fruit, and these are wax models likewise. And this is Rose Sianka, and this is Nikitskaya Bordovaya. After visiting the office and seeing their display, we went out into the orchard, and that one picture, what you didn't see was this was breakfast, and off on the left-hand side that you didn't see was where our what shall I call it? Our drinks, our motivators for the day went. When we went out in the orchard, where we had a lot of internal heat, and it was cold, temperature was probably down around 40 degrees, and we were feeling no pain at that point. This is a picture of our discussing the persimmon. We were looking there at American persimmon, and again, as I mentioned Sunday night, the pH there is 9. And the American persimmon are there, they're growing, but they don't like that high a pH either. The bark is splitting, the leaves were chlorous. Another shot. Notice my cap. This is a pollinizer. Now, in their work with the hybrids, they are backbreeding the Nikitskaya Bordovaya and have come up with some very good hybrids, some very good offspring. And what they're using is a male, is a perfect flowering male. Now, I'm not sure, I suspect they're probably just more lucky than anything that they happen to get across a male that is dropping improved offspring. But it is a male, and you can see how long the petiole of the stem is on that fruit. Now, this is one of the hybrids. Another picture of another hybrid. They had many. And they've got several that they're going to name and describe and release. It's similar to our copyright situation, or copyright laws. Another one. And they also have disease problems, and that looks like, I don't remember what that was, but that looks like some kind of a fruit fly infection. Now, we were out in the orchard from 9 o'clock in the morning, and we were out there all day. We never stopped for break. We didn't stop for lunch. We didn't stop for potty calls. We just found a tree, and after about 9 hours, we went in. And again, it was so cold. Natalie was so cold that she just literally was shaking like this. And we brought her in. They brought her in and wrapped a blanket. It wasn't warm inside the building either. And wrapped a blanket around her, put her feet in warm water. And I thought she was really going to come down with the cold. She was really going to be sick. And I had the Zicam with me, and I gave her several tablets of Zicam, and I told her, you take one now, and you take one every 3 hours, and in the morning we'll see how you are. Here's another picture of Victor pouring more hot water into the water to keep it warm. And the next morning, she was perfectly all right. No cold. She traveled with us the rest of the trip. Now, again, that's Victor, Vasily, and Vasily and Kunst was his name, and Natalie. And we left from there, that station, and went to Yalta from that location. And they went with us, and she served as my interpreter during the whole time at the Yalta Fruit Convention. Now, a few more things, just about out of time. On the update, I'd like to comment. First of all, something interesting that I saw in Yalta at the Nikita Botanical Gardens. They're moving their collection of khaki to another location. But while we were walking through there and looking, and they said, would you like to see John Rick? And so I said, yes, I would love to see your John Rick tree. And I walked over and I just looked up into the median and I said, that's not John Rick. And they looked at me and, how can you tell so quick? Well, it was a male tree, it wasn't a female tree, so I knew it wasn't John Rick. Something interesting that they showed me was a hybrid, a natural occurring hybrid of lotus and khaki. Now, lotus is a 30 chromosome persimmon, and khaki is a 90 chromosome persimmon. And my question is, how is this possible? That's, now, the base number, or the haploid number for a diploid khaki is 15. So the diploid, the haploid number for the lotus is 15. The haploid number for the 90 chromosome is three sets of chromosomes. So in recombination, you have one set of chromosomes from the lotus and 3 sets, and you come up with 4 sets of chromosomes, and you come up with a tetraploid persimmon. And so I want to try that with the Virginiana and see if we can do that with Virginiana, because I think that would make an interesting and very possible rootstock, because lotus makes a good rootstock, but it is not winter hardy. Lotus is used in California for rootstock because it is more fibrous than the American persimmon. So I've contacted the repository in Davis, and they want to work with me, and hopefully next spring we can exchange pollen and see if we can accomplish the hybrid both at her end and at mine end. Another thing that I didn't bring any slides for is you all have heard me talk about and write briefly about TLD, persimmon leaf drop. Persimmon leaf drop is a serious problem in persimmon. The flower appears at the leaf petiole and the stem. And something is causing the tree to generate abscisic acid, which takes the leaf off the tree. And when the abscisic acid takes the leaf, it takes the flower with it. So hence, no fruit. And in 2004, when many of you visited the orchard, my orchard, as part of the annual meeting, well, the first thing I said is, this orchard, what you see, is not the way an orchard should look. And it was primarily because of the persimmon leaf drop. And I've been blaming it, I have a highly suspicion, well, there's 2 things. First of all, I've noticed that offspring from early golden are more subject to it than offspring from Morris Perk. So the variety has something to do with it. Number 2, I've long suspected that oxygen deprivation, waterlogging of the clay soil is a culprit. With that in mind, last fall I placed field tile between 8 of my rows and to see if this section of the orchard now suddenly started producing fruit in the section of the orchard that is not tiled, still had persimmon leaf drop, that we know that this is involved. Well, this year we have drought. And instead of draining, if I wanted to test that in that orchard, comparing it on the site, I would have had to flood the tiles and irrigate that section. But overall, this year I've got the best crop I've ever had. The trees look the best they've ever looked. So there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that leaf deprivation, oxygen deprivation in the leaves is part of it. And also fertilization, because one section of the orchard where fertilization is low, I still have that problem and very little fruit. So we're almost coming, I think we've just about got that problem solved, but in the past I've had people call me and say, Jerry, my tree is just, the ground under is covered with green leaves. What's my problem? And I've always had to tell them I don't know, but I think we're coming close to an answer. Any questions? Thank you.